Because the truth is that there is a time for dualism and a time for non-dualism. And there's a time to work against and a time to work with. And there is a time to call someone an enemy and a time to not call someone an enemy. And there's a time to reap and a time to sow. And then also they say, you talk about winning. Here's the thing, is I enjoy writing, but I'm doing this because I want to win. And they say, but if you talk about winning, then that means somebody has to lose. I got to tell you, right now hammerhead sharks are losing. Right now the oceans are losing. This is, in a sense, a zero-sum game. And frankly, I will be glad when the capitalists lose. And people also say, don't you have compassion for them? I mean, you just have to have compassion. It's like, honestly, it's a bit late in the game to have compassion for perpetrators. And there are enough victims out there and survivors that my compassion is all filled up with them. I have no compassion for perpetrators as perpetrators. As long as a perpetrator is still perpetrating, compassion for them is called codependence. And it's called enabling. Once they stop perpetrating, we can talk about truth and reconciliation or not. We can shoot them in the head. I don't care. But the important thing is to stop the perpetration. Then after that, we can have discussions about compassion. But right now, my compassion is my loyalty. Forget compassion. My loyalty is with the victims. And, okay, well, that's very nice, Derrick. But the next thing they say is they go back to the love thing. They say, really, we just need to love more. Because if we all have more love, then everything will be all groovy. And I actually agree with this. I do believe we need to love more. I don't believe we need to love them more. I think we need to love ourselves more. Because if we loved ourselves, we wouldn't put up with any of this shit. If we loved our communities, we would not put up with living in a non-democratic society. If we loved our communities, we would not put up with having water that you can light on fire. We would not if we loved our family members, we would not allow them to be poisoned. It's really pretty straightforward. I do believe we should love more. I don't believe we should love them more. I wrote an introduction to a book. I don't remember what it's called. It's by John Lamb Lash. I don't remember what it's called. And it was pretty interesting. He was saying, what is really unique about Jesus' message? And what is unique about Jesus' message is we should turn the other cheek and we should love our enemies. And he made the point that was really good that basically God, the capital G Christian God, I hope I'm not insulting anybody, but I mean, if I haven't insulted you by now, then I guess it's not too late. The capital G God is just a nasty-ass motherfucker, I mean, he's just, I figured out why he's so nasty in the Bible. Because he's lived forever, and he doesn't have a body. And 7 billion years, or however long, is a long time to go without an orgasm. So he just is really pissed off at anybody. I mean, I'd be cranky too, It's like, I'd be smiting somebody. Anyway, so it's really interesting because God, the capital G God of the Old Testament, is pretty nasty. And then along what Jesus is basically doing, think about this in terms of an abusive dynamic, with God being the father, being the abusive patriarch, and then Jesus is basically, if we have a woman who is married to someone who is beating the shit out of her and who's doing lots of smiting, and then somebody says to her, what you need to do is you need to love him, you need to turn the other cheek, that's called an ally to the abuser. They make a really nice 1-2 punch, as it were. Anyway, okay, the next thing that they always say is they throw out the line, you can't use the master's tools to dismantle the master's house. I can't tell you how many times pacifists have said that to me. But I can tell you a couple things. One of them is, and I love Audre Lorde, she's great, so no complaints with Audre Lorde. Anyway, I can tell you a couple things. One of them is that all the pacifists who say that have never read the essay from which it comes. Because the essay from which it comes has nothing to do with pacifism. In fact, the essay from which it comes is about taking a multivariate approach to a problem that's multivariate. That's it. Which is exactly what I'm talking about, taking a multivariate approach to a problem that's multivariate. The second thing I can tell you is, as much as I love Audre Lorde, she never worked construction. Because it is a terrible fucking metaphor. It is the world's worst metaphor. The reason it's the world's worst metaphor is because for a metaphor to work, It has to be true in the real world. And it actually doesn't matter whose tools you use to dismantle the master's house. You know? It's like, you can use my tools, you can use your tools, you can use your Uncle Jed's tools, you can steal tools from Walmart. It doesn't matter. They're just tools. And besides which, that notion, that the idea, this is not Audre Lorde's fault, this is the pacifist's fault, the idea that those in power own violence, that that's one of their tools, is like, look, they tell us they own the land, they tell us they own the water, they tell us they own genetic materials. I'll be goddamned if I give them violence too. I think that Mother Grizzly Bears will back me up once again. And also, we can't use any of the master's tools. Well, God damn it. Okay, spirituality is one of the master's tools because they use, I mean, anybody look at the Christian right? It's like, okay, so they use religion. Okay, we can't use religion. They own the media. Well, God damn it, I guess we can't use words either. Let's see, what are the other tools they use? They use guns, so we can't use guns. They use education, so we can't use education. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense. Okay. The next one that they do is, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. One of the ones they do is they say, okay, how many people in here have my book, A Language Older Than Words? Okay, those of you who have a language older than words, how many of you have a razor blade at home? Okay, take that chapter called Violence Revisited and cut it out. And since we're all environmentalists, you have to recycle it. You can't throw it away. And the reason is because in that chapter, I say something that is one of the stupidest things that any human being has ever said. I say something that is... It's really embarrassing. I mean, it's like... I mean, I'm talking about it even. It's like talking. It's like admitting to being a compulsive masturbator, which I'm not. I'm not. Okay, in that chapter, I say that if you fight back, you run the risk of becoming like they are. It is so stupid. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, what does this mean? Does this mean that the woman who kills someone trying to rape her runs the risk of becoming a rapist? I mean, does this mean that Tecumseh ran the risk of becoming like the people trying to steal their land? Does this mean that a tiger who kills a zookeeper runs the risk of becoming a zookeeper? It just doesn't make any sense. It's just nonsense. This is one they throw out. And then, I'll do one more, which is the other one they throw out all the time, and this makes me really mad, is I say, you can't ever use violence because violence never accomplishes anything. Really? Seriously, nothing at all. Okay, I did a talk in Galesburg, Illinois last year, and my plane was really late. I flew into Moline, Quad Cities, and I got in maybe midnight, 1 or 2 in the morning, got the shuttle to my hotel. Shuttles, I'm like a mile from the nearest restaurant that's open, which is a Denny's, which was just delicious. And so at 1:30 in the morning, I walked from 2 o'clock, whatever in the morning, I walked from my hotel, which, by the way, touring is not romantic at all. This is like the prototypical tour experience. You get into a hotel at 2 o'clock in the morning, walk by myself to a Denny's. Anyway, I'm walking to Denny's, and I go past a McDonald's that is closed, and there is a white van parked in the McDonald's parking lot. As I walk by, it starts up. I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit nervous. Okay, let's think for a second. Okay, first off, women in the room. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. You're in Moline, Illinois, at a hotel. The nearest restaurant is a mile down a highway with no... It's a, let's say, a lonely highway. It's not in town. There's no lights. You're crossing a bridge, which means you can't run away. Okay, your options are to A, walk to Denny's for the delicious food, or go to bed hungry and wait till the next day. Okay, I am perfectly aware of my male privilege in being able to walk, even though I was kind of... And then you're walking along at 2 o'clock in the morning, nobody's on the highway, and a white van is sitting in the McDonald's parking lot that starts up as you walk by. So as a female... can I presume that your internal thoughts at that point are basically along the lines of "aye" or something along those lines? Is that reasonably accurate? Or maybe it's you're thinking the Eric Burdon and the Animals song, "I got to get out of this place if it's the last thing I ever do." I mean, so the point is that systematic violence by men against women has systematically changed the behavior of more than 50% of the population. It's been very effective at doing that. So what this means, violence never accomplishes anything. That means that the Indians actually did not have their land stolen by force. Instead, they said, hey, we like your way of living a lot better than ours. You want some land? Oh, this whole vet thing you're talking about? It's like violence doesn't accomplish anything. I think, wouldn't the Iraqis probably agree that actually violence accomplished nothing whatsoever and it didn't actually change their society or destroy their infrastructure? Or, I mean, it's, I got to tell you that fear of state violence is a significant reason that I have not blown up any dams. It is obscene to say that violence never accomplishes anything. That means there's no global economy. Violence is dreadfully effective. That's why they use it. So a few years ago, I got a call from a friend of mine. She's a longtime activist. She called up, she was crying. She said, this work's killing me. It's breaking my heart. I said, yeah, I know. It'll do that. She said, the dominant culture hates everything, doesn't it? I said, yeah, it does. Even itself. She said, it has a death urge, doesn't it? I said, yeah, it does. She said, unless it stops, it's going to kill everything on the planet, isn't it? I said, yeah, it is, unless it stopped. I said, we're not going to make it some great new glorious tomorrow, are we? I thought a moment, and I said the thing I knew all along was the best thing I could say, which is, I've been waiting for you to say that. And the reason that was the best thing I could say, and the reason I knew that was the best thing I could say, is because maybe, 15, 16, 17 years ago now, I was undergoing a similar collapse. So I'd been an activist for 6, 7 years at that point, and I couldn't bear it. This work was just killing me. I was breaking down into sobs all the time over the death of the salmon, bull trout, Selkirk caribou, and a lot of my activist friends were saying, just take some time off, Derrick. You're falling apart. Take some time off. The problems will still be there when you come back. And I knew I couldn't do that. I mean, what's the use of going away to come back to the same old problem? And besides which, if you're not going to cry about the death of the salmon, what are you going to cry about, So I just kept, I was just breaking down all the time. And then one day I called up this friend of mine, Jeanette Armstrong. She's an Okanagan Indian, writer and activist. And I said, this work's killing me. It's breaking my heart. And she said, yeah, it'll do that. I said, the dominant culture hates everything, doesn't it? She said, yeah, it does, even itself. I said, it has a death urge, doesn't it? She said, yeah, it does. I said, unless it stops, it's going to kill everything on the planet, isn't it? She said, yeah, it is, unless it stopped. And I said, we're not going to make it some great new glorious tomorrow, are we? And she said the best thing she could possibly say, which is, I've been waiting for you to say that. And the reason that was the best thing she could possibly say is because it normalized my despair. It let me know that despair is an appropriate response to a desperate situation. It let me know that the sorrow is just sorrow and the pain is just pain. And it's not so much the sorrow or even the pain that hurts as it is my resistance to it. It let me know that I could feel all those things and it wouldn't kill me. There's this idea that if you really acknowledge how bad things are, you have to go around being miserable all the time. But the truth is, I'm a complex enough being that I can hold in my heart the understanding that we are really fucked. And that life's really, really good. And that we are so fucked. And life's really good. And we're just plain fucked. And that life's really, really good. I am full of rage and hate and sorrow and joy and happiness and contentment. We're allowed to feel more than one thing at a time, But something even better happened than me realizing I could feel all those things and it wouldn't kill me, which is that I felt all those things and it did kill me. And there's a wonderful thing about being dead, which is that once you're dead, they can't touch you anymore. Not through threats, not through promises, not through anything. You can still sing and you can still dance and you can still make love and you can still fight like hell, but they can't touch you.